Thank you all. Every candlelight and life is a universe. You are welcome to keep your cameras on or not. We will ask to turn cameras back on later in the program. Many of us here have been advocates for peace and justice for many years. We have committed our lives to this work, and in this moment we look at the present day and wonder if our efforts have been wasted. Many of us started out as being surprised and shocked that this violence has been allowed to last this long. Many of us feel a sense of numbness. We tried everything we can to simply call for at least a ceasefire, so no more innocents will be killed. Today is October 6th, and we are here together to look back, grieve, and connect with the pain of generations past, especially when it comes to Palestinian suffering, abuse, and displacement. To connect it all together as part of a collective narrative, and not to isolate incidences here and there, and not just to do reactions to these incidences. For me, as Sami Awad, it is time for me to grieve the pain of my father's family, losing their father figure, losing their home in their ancestral home, Jerusalem, and becoming refugees in 1948. And connecting that 76 years later with my mother's family, losing their homes, their livelihood, and becoming refugees from their ancestral Gaza in this last year. In my reflection, pain, and sorrow, I find my strength not to give up. The strength does not come from a fantasy or a pipe dream. It comes from a deep commitment to heed the call of those who survived the Nazi concentration camps and said, never again will we allow this happen to any peoples in this world. Please join me now on this day to also say never again. Thank you for coming and joining our efforts to remember the suffering and commit to ending it for everyone. Today, we remember the story of the Palestinian pain that has existed for decades in this land. It is not to say that others did not suffer and lose loved ones, but it is clear that ending military occupation and apartheid is a key answer to ending this violence in this land. Today, we look back at history through the eyes and voices of guests who have lived and engaged in it firsthand, from a Palestinian who lived in Gaza, an Israeli who committed her life to truth at any cost, and a Palestinian who is the daughter of refugees living in the diaspora. To start, I would like now to invite our first guest for tonight, journalist and author Amira Haas, that many of us know very well and really admire her writings, to share her own reflections as an Israeli, as a woman, as an activist on the history that led to October 7th. Please see her bio in the chat. Amira?
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. Thank you all for being here. I recognized already some friends in the names of participants. It's hard. You want us to talk, and I feel that I want to sometimes be totally silent, and more often even to just shout and shout and shout, because if you ask me 11 months ago and a half, if I thought it would last for so long, this nightmare, I would have said impossible. And yet here we are a year after, or a year after and a year of genocide. And I can't even believe that I'm saying these words. And I know that this session is about the 100 years before, or even the 30 years before, or even the 70 years before, that we all know are an accumulation of Israeli cruelty and Israeli indifference and Israeli taking over, and Israel grabbing land and expelling, that were diffused over the years in the eyes of the world, but not for the Palestinians. So we think about the concentrated cruelty of the 7th of October, and we don't see the accumulated cruelty of so many decades before. And since you yourself mentioned Never Again and mentioned the Holocaust, I will share with you, because there is no way to sum up the 70 years of cruelty or 80 years of cruelty and indifference and expulsion. I'll tell you what my father, who was a survivor of the genocide committed by Nazi Germany and against the Jewish people, what he told me in the early 90s during the very cruel and violent repression of the first Palestinian, of the uprising, the popular uprising of that started in 87. We listened to the news, and I was coming from Gaza telling about the repression in Gaza. We were listening to the news, and he said, you know, yeah, we had a genocide. We knew genocide, we Jews. And there is no genocide against the Palestinians. There was not, until there were many other things, but not genocide. And he said, but their ordeal, their repression is lasting decade after decade after decade. Ours, okay, it was 5 years and it was over. But with them, with the Palestinians, it's more and more and again and again. This was one insight of his, a survivor, who found himself in Israel and suffered that. He found himself in Israel, yes, after the Holocaust. And he, in a way, he felt at home here. And then he did not feel at home. And then I was coming back from Gaza, where I moved in 93, but I used to go a lot I started going a lot in 1991. And I came home, or I came to see my father, and I was excited about the people that I met in Gaza. Each one of them was a discovery for me. And I was so excited and fascinated by their sense of humor, by their warmth, by their experiences, by their stories. And most of them, or many of them, were ex-prisoners and, of course, militants against the occupation. And I told it to my father, and I shared with him my excitement. And he said, like looking surprised at me that I'm so excited. And he said, but of course, Amira, a resisting people or a people in struggle is a beautiful people. So here I have the two sides of how my father discovered 80 years, 70 years, 100 years of Palestinian, of Israeli or Jewish or settler colonial oppression, and Palestinians' way and Palestinians' life. And yes, I saw the beauty in the resistance, which was the resistance of being in the place, living your life, insisting to live, insisting to have friends, insisting of developing in spite of all the hardships, challenging Israeli measures and challenging Israeli dehumanization by human life. And now I think about all those people that I knew in Gaza, and many of them are now in this hell in Gaza. And I think about their parents who were refugees. And some of these parents died in the tents over the last year. They died, they passed away because they couldn't take it any longer. The concern of their children was to get them Pampers, to get them water, to get them, to rush with them away from the bombings. And I ask myself, is it the culmination of 100 years? Is it the logical culmination of 100 years? I refuse to see it like that. I refuse to think of it as something inevitable, as something that is in the genes or is in the genes of a system. And as I said, I mean, I cannot now. I find it hard, as you see, I find it hard to find words. I want to end with a hope, but I find that myself only able to end with a plea that first of all, this nightmare has to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Amira, for your words, for your heart, for your presence, and truly thank you for all the work that you have done over the years. I would like for us now to open the cameras, if you like, and again, to take a moment in silence to reflect and to allow Amira's emotions and words to enter us, to acknowledge within ourselves our reaction and response to what she said. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Ahmed Al-Nouq, an activist and a journalist from Gaza, to share a little bit of his story with us. Ahmed?
Thank you very much, Sami, and thank you, everyone. I was, to be honest, I was touched deeply by what Amira said now, her story, her heartfelt thoughts and emotions. As a Palestinian, I could feel what she's saying. And before that, I was also, when we started this conversation, and I saw lots of messages from everywhere, from London, from the UK, from America, from Switzerland, from all around the world, I felt like that we humans from all around the world should be equal. We should be one family. But unfortunately, there are some people who want to divide us, who want to make us enemies among each other. Last year, on the 6th of October, life might have appeared that it is normal for everyone in the world, for Americans, for British, for Israelis, for people from all around the world. Life was normal. But for us Palestinians, life was never normal. And I am someone who, I spoke a lot about my story. I told my story 100 times. And I told you how during this war, Israel killed my family, all my family, my father, my brothers, my sisters, and my 14 nieces and nephews. But for some people, they think that all of this started on the 7th of October, but they never knew that our story did not start on the 7th of October, and after the 7th of October, it has always been ongoing for the past 76 years. My father, who was killed during this genocide, he was 75 years old. And during the Nakba, my father was born. My grandmother gave birth to my father on the Nakba in 1948. That was 76 years ago. And during that day, my father lost his grandfather and his brother because Israel dropped a bomb on the family, on the market in Tel Balah, which killed 150 people. Then I also told the story of my mother and how she died in the year 2020 because the Israelis did not allow her to receive a treatment. I also told the story of my brother, who Israel killed in 2014. I have been telling my story, and I have been telling the Palestinian stories since I started working in 2014. This is what I have been telling. This is what I have been working on. Stories of myself, stories of my family, stories of my brother, stories of my grandparents, stories of the Nakba in which my family lost their homes, lost their lands, and they were forced to come to Gaza. I also started this project, which is called, I co-founded the project We Are Not Numbers, in which we tell the stories of the Palestinians. So, Sami, all of my life has been about telling stories. Stories of love, stories of resilience, stories of occupation, stories of colonization, stories of lack of electricity. Everything we have been working on whilst telling the stories. But sometimes I feel that we have reached the point that even telling our stories is of no use. Sami, we have been telling our stories for 76 years. Ever since the genocide started 1 year ago, we have been telling our stories. I have been telling my family story. I have been telling the stories of my friend Maysara, who lost his life. He was an amazing doctor, and Israel bombed him and killed all of his family. I've been telling the stories of my neighbors who were killed as well. I have been telling the stories of how Gaza was beautiful before the war. We have been telling our stories over and over and over, Sami, but nothing has changed. And I think right now we have reached a point where we are tired. We are tired, Sami, of telling our stories. We are tired of talking to the world. We are tired of sharing our experiences with you, with the white people from all around the world. We are tired of doing all of that. And I am genuinely exhausted of telling my story, of talking about Palestine, of pleading to the world. We want to live like a normal life. We want to live like normal people. We just want to enjoy living. We just want to live with freedom, with equality, without wars, without the siege that crippled our life. We want to be normal human beings, but unfortunately, no one listened to us. And now, as we are speaking right now, even 1 year after the genocide, as we are speaking right now, the Israeli army is instructing people to move again from their homes in the north of the Gaza Strip because they want to level the area again and again. And as we are talking to you right now, as I'm speaking to you, more people are dying in Gaza. More kids are starving. And it feels like telling our stories is not enough. It feels like advocating for peace, for love, for safety is not enough. It feels like we, the Palestinians, and those who are pro-Palestinians or pro-human rights, it seems that we have done everything we could. But unfortunately, nothing had changed the fact that we are doomed to die. We are doomed to be killed day after day. But this genocide and this occupation, I think it only teaches me one lesson, that this is not a war between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Although it might seem that it is, but it's not a war between the Palestinians and the Israelis. It is a war that we are fighting within ourselves, wherever we are, whether we are in Israel or Palestine or America or Europe or everywhere. This is a war between good and bad, between evil and good, between barbarism and civilization, as Netanyahu said. It is. And it is a war that we're fighting among ourselves and within ourselves. What do we do when we see genocide take place in Gaza? What is our message? What should we do when we see kids starve to death? What do we do when we see kids being torn apart in Gaza for a year and even more than that? It is a war within ourselves. And it is also a war or a fight in which we understand ourselves more and more. I've reached a point where I don't understand this world, or maybe my understanding of this world has changed. It's never the same. Who are we? And what are we doing? And what are the values of equality and human rights? And what is the United Nations? And what is the ICC? And what is the ICJ? And what is the international law? And what are the courts? And what is justice? And what is equality? These are the concepts that I am right now struggling with. Are these concepts only valid for people who have different skin color like me? Or these values are supposed to be for everyone? So these are the fights that I am having right now within myself. And this is the fight that every one of us might or should be having within themselves. Are we now standing for human rights? Are we standing for justice? Are we standing for equality? Or are we only siding with the powerful just because they have different skin of color? And this is not a war between the Israelis and the Palestinians. This is a war between good and bad, as I said. And unfortunately, we who live in the West right now, our governments are siding with the bad, are siding with the evil. And it is our fight right now to tell our governments that enough is enough and we must pressure Israel to stop the genocide because it is too late.
Yeah.
So I will leave you with one last message. Everything I have said, I'm in the depth of despair, to be honest. It seems that there's no hope. But all of what I have been saying to you is not a message of despair, but it is a message for action. We are the people. We have the power to change reality. And there is a lot of things that we must do. And if we don't do what we must do, then we are complicit and then we have failed ourselves and we have failed the humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. I really appreciate every word you said. And thank you for the call and thank you for the heart. And again, I know I need this a minute so we don't move in just very quickly and allow the words of Ahmed to seep into our hearts, to our minds, to reflect on them, to ask ourselves truly, what side are we on? To ask ourselves, how can we really engage in working for justice and peace and equality, and not the one-sidedness of this. Please take a moment and reflect and listen to yourself and your heart. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Rawan Roshni, a dear friend and an artivist, combining art and activism together, to be with us in sharing her story and reflections and singing a song for us. As I said before, she is the daughter of displacement and refugees from 1948. And I would love to hear from her how that story has shaped her life. Rowan.
Shukran, Sami. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Tuning in from Amman, Jordan, and I will start with a song. عصفور طل من الشباك وقال لي يا رولو خبيني عندك خبيني دخلك يا رولو خبيني عندك خبيني دخلك يا رورو قلت له انت من وين قال لي من حدود السما قلت له جاي من وين قال لي من بيت الجيران قلت له خايف من مين قال لي من القفص هربان قلت له ريشاتك وين قال لي فرفضها الزمان ونزلت عخده دمعة وجناحاته متكي وتهدى بالأرض وقال بدي امشي وما في ضميته عقلبي وصار يتوجع على جروحاته قبل ما يكسر الأرض تكسر صوته وجناحاته. That's not the end of the song, but I will pause there because that's the natural moment we're in right now. A moment of grief, of sorrow, of so much loss over the last year, and as already mentioned, over the last 76 or 100 years. My birth name is Rawan al-Rashaq. I was born in Kuwait. My parents, my mother and father, were also born in Kuwait. My grandparents, however, are Palestinian, from Haifa and from Khalil. Each of them has their own story of expulsion during the Nakba in 1948, but I will share my grandmother Amina's story, as I just asked her for the details the other day. When she was 6 months old, she was evacuated with her family in the arms of her mother from Haifa by boat to Trablus in Lebanon. They were told they needed to leave for a little while, that they could come back to their homes. She was telling me the story just the other day, and she said that her mother almost dropped her in the sea, that the captain caught her and told her mother to be careful. And she said, Teta, maybe that's why until now I don't know how to swim, or I'm scared of the sea. So though she was so young, it's stored in her body. The trauma of expulsion, of separation from land, separation from family, separation from home. She lived until she was 13 years old in a jami', in a mosque in Trablus, where there was just a thin fabric separating families from each other. And then she was moved to Kuwait, as her father was pursuing income to support the family. So I've grown up my whole life with this deep longing as a Palestinian diaspora. Not home here, not home there. As somebody who grew up in Kuwait, actually only until I was 3 years old, because then we were displaced again by the war between Kuwait and Iraq, the Gulf War. And I heard from my parents, because I didn't remember that 3-year-old experience, that we as Palestinians in Kuwait were never treated as full citizens. We had second-class citizenship. We never received the paperwork. So we came to Jordan. And when I was 12, my family immigrated to Canada in pursuit of better paperwork and better access. So I am really of the top tier of privileged Palestinian diaspora. And I also just want to hold in multi-partiality here, that I am one of over 40 million Palestinian diaspora scattered around the globe. I had built it up in my head that once I set foot on the ancestral homeland that is Palestine, I would feel like a grand arrival, like a grand return. First time I had the privilege to visit, which shouldn't be a privilege, should be my right to return, was in 2010. I went with my grandmother, and I had the chance to meet her brother and his children and grandchildren, to visit the land in Khalil that she used to play in when she was a child under the big baluta tree that has survived. And also, I came to realize that I didn't know where my place was after so many years abroad in the West and also abroad in neighboring regional countries. I didn't understand where to even start. And my degrees in political science and Middle Eastern civilization seemed to just situation on the land. As an artivist, as a musician and a singer and a songwriter and a poet, I carry Palestine with me everywhere, in every performance, on every stage, in every circle. And up until a year ago, many people didn't even understand what that was. I would say Palestine, they'd say, what, Pakistan? So I want to acknowledge that with this horrific genocide that has been happening for a year and counting, the only silver lining, although we should never have had to pay this price, is that the whole world is waking up. And now when I say Palestine, people know what that is. And when I wear this hatta everywhere in the world, I catch others who are wearing it, who give me the nod. We see you. I just want to be aware of time. Yeah, a few more minutes. I'm honored to be part of an amazing community on the land now. I found my way. I found the way that I can show up for my people and for humanity. And we work on acknowledging and alchemizing collective, intergenerational, and cross-border trauma. That's the driving force underneath the cycles of violence, dehumanization, and oppression. We work towards collective liberation. And in the last year, it's been hard to keep holding that flame, that spark of hope. Fluctuating between helplessness, rage, sorrow, and then inspiration and motivation, knowing that this moment might be the most important moment of my life to show up. So I'm here with you now with all of that. That song I sang at the beginning, عصفور طل من الشباك, it's one of the first songs I learned as a child. And it's about a caged bird. The last lines I was saying is قبل ما يكسر القفص كسر صوته وجناحاته. Before the bird could break out of the cage, his wings, her voice, were wounded. And so I want to continue the song now. The last verse is one of hope. And it's so important to feel everything, the whole range of reality, and to hold the vision. So I hold that vision. And I ask you to maybe touch your heart if you would like, if you feel called. And imagine that little caged bird growing up to see in her lifetime a free Palestine, where she can fly from the river to the sea and spread so much love. قلت له لا تخاف تطلع شوف الشمس اللي راح تطلع وتطلع بالغابة وشاف أمواج الحرية بتلمع شاف جوانح عم بتزقزق من خلف ابواب العلي شاف الغابة عم بتحلق على جوانح الحرية عصفور طل من الشباك وقال لي يا رورو خبيني عندك خبيني دخلك يا رورو. Thank you.
Thank you, Rowan, for your words, for your voice, for your role in this movement. I would like now to ask the person who inspired me to do what I do, my uncle, Mubarak Awad, founder of Nonviolence International, deported from Palestine in 1988 for his nonviolent activism, to give a few words of reflection.
Thank you, everybody. It's a sad situation. And I'm here with my brother Bishara, Sammy's father. And when my father was killed, I was 5. My brother Bishara was 9. And the Nakba created so much sadness to our family. We ended in orphanages, that we have difficulty even seeing my mother. We lost our house with everything in it. So it's so sad that within less than a mile, we became refugees from the city of Jerusalem outside to inside the city of Jerusalem, where we have nobody, no help. And it was a disaster. But my mother was strong enough to tell us, don't carry a gun, don't kill. The one who killed your dad doesn't know. He killed a family, he killed a whole culture of having you 7 children with a grandmother to live in the street and to suffer that much. Don't kill, don't destroy somebody's life. And we did that, and with God's grace and help, we did so much work for others in nonviolence, not to kill. Bishara started the Bethlehem Bible College to help people with faith. I started Nonviolence International and the Palestinian Center for the Study of Nonviolence in Jerusalem, so that people have a kindness and also forgiveness, even for those who kill my father. It's difficult and it's amazing. What happened now is not October 7th, that's the end of things or start of things. We have to look before and after October 7th. And that's very, very important. I want to also thank millions of people around the world that they support the Palestinian cause now. And they are active. Many of them are willing to lose their jobs, or even if they are in schools, they will be dismissed from schools or not to have scholarship, just because they have saying that Israel is wrong, genocide is bad, we want to support the Palestinians. All over the world, the United Nations have to change. We cannot keep the United Nations as is, with only 5 countries in the world make all the laws. And that was become a disaster for us as Palestinians, because the United States continuous support of Israel and veto everything that to help the Israelis. That's wrong. So there have to be a change there, and we have a voice to tell the UN, change yourself from the bottom up, not from top down. We also feel that, imagine if you are a parent you have a house, you have everything, and someone else take it. They took it furnished. The trees that we planted, they are all taken. The fruits are taken and eaten by someone else. And we cannot go to that house. Imagine that. Nobody would allow it. Nobody would allow it. But somehow, the Israelis were able to convince that Israelis or Jews are the chosen people of God. And I don't know what kind of God is that to choose those people who kill, destroy, and especially in Gaza, hundreds and thousands of people, children and women. Who is that God who is a destructive person, and yet would God agree to what the Jews are doing there, the Israelis are doing there? We all have to question that. And what kind of Christians around the world who are saying that they have to support Israel, it doesn't matter what they do. No, they have to pray and give a kind of a notice that we are not accepting this hypocrisy. Christianity is forgiveness, is to be with the poor. If somebody is in jail, to go and visit him. If somebody hungry, feed him, don't kill him. That is Christianity. We have to go back to it. And our Christian people around the world have to understand that also Christ was with the poor. We are the poor now. We feel, but we are rich in our ability to say no to occupation. Whatever destruction we have, whatever death and how many death people we have, we are not giving up. I want also to thank Amira and thank Ahmed and Rawan for putting their effort in bringing their messages to the whole people. We have more than 500 people listening to us. Jews around the world fight justice. They fight for equality. They fight freedom. But whenever come to the Palestinian, few of them continue that fight. But many, they said, no, we have to fight for our new God, which is Israel. That's sad for me and sad for the Jewish people, as much sad for Israel. I want to give my brother Bishara, who's older than me, if he wants to say anything. Bishara.
Well, thank you, Mubarak. And it is nice that we can share with you. Yes, we did suffer. We did go through a great deal of suffering. 1948, we became refugees and so on. But we have to look ahead for better days. We have to see to it that people should not suffer anywhere, any place. We want to truly see to it that people should live a normal life, have children, have family, and truly be a community that care for each other. So our aim is not to stay with the history, the sad history which we have, but to go ahead and see better days, not just for us, but also for other people. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank Nonviolence International. Sami, please, thank you for all your job, what you did. Michael Beer and everybody who helped and our volunteers. And I'm going back to Sami.
Thank you, Ammo and Baba, my uncle and my father, for your words. And I want to thank you all for joining us, and to remind you and to invite you tomorrow to join us with the Parents Circle Families Forum for a remembrance of last year's attack, to remember October 7th and what happened on that day. We will meet at the same time, and you are invited to use the same Zoom link. And on Tuesday, you're invited to join us as well in these 3 days of remembrance with Combatants for Peace, remembering the beginning of the devastating attacks and siege of Gaza that continue to this very minute. Please, we invite you to also wear the black ribbon or black armband for these 3 days and beyond, with the slogan and the motto, "Every life, a universe." Thank you each and every one of you for joining us today. and for your commitment to nonviolence and the sacredness of every life. We need all of you in this work. And I would just want to add to what Ahmed said. It is time for us to write a new story. Thank you again. And I would like, as we depart from this space, to ask Rawan if she could sing another song for us as we say goodbye and as we say see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Absolutely, will be my pleasure. There are Palestinian folklore songs that have become more known around the world now, and I want to highlight one of them. Our culture is a big part of our resilience and our strength and our sumud. And so the song is, it was sung by women for Palestinians who were held captive, political prisoners. And it was sung in a code, a freedom code. So I leave you with this as you depart, hoping that we can stay strong. يا طالعين عين للجبل يا مولى المنقذين النار بين لليمن يامان عين للهنا يا روح يا طالعين عين للجبل يا مولى المنقذين النار بين لليمن يامان عين للهنا يا روح ما بدي مين كلكم خلعة ولا لا 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 بدي زنار بين اليمن يامان عين الهنا يا روح ما بدي مين كلكم خلعة ولا لا 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 بدي ملبوس بين اليمن يامان عين الهنا يا روح يا طالعين عين للجبل يا مول المنقذين النار بين اليمن يامان عين للهنا يا روح ما بدي مين كلكم خلعة ولا لا 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 بدي زنار بين اليمن يامان عين للهنا يا روح ما بدي مين كلكم خلعة ولا لا 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 بدي ملبوس بين اليمن يامان عين للهنا يا روح.
Thank you, Rawan. Thank you, Amira. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Wish you a blessed, safe night, and see you tomorrow. Thank you.